Senate President Rob Wagner and House Speaker Julie Fahey are joining us now over Zoom. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, Wright.
What are Democrats' priorities heading into the short session?
Well, I would say that this short session is happening against a pretty challenging backdrop. You referenced a number of the issues that we'll be focused on, but we have decisions from the federal government that are making it harder for families to afford health care and groceries. We've got the big federal budget bill that is cutting funding to healthcare and food assistance. And we've got chaotic decisions around National Guard deployments and immigration raids that are creating real fear and uncertainty amongst thousands of Oregonians. So our job this session is to both respond to those challenges responsibly and to keep moving forward on reining in the cost of living for Oregon families. It's a really important moment, and we have to stay focused on doing what the voters sent us here to do.
Let's start with immigration. Lawmakers have proposed several bills in response to immigration customs and enforcement activity in Oregon, including limiting the use of face masks for law enforcement. Is this something you will encourage your caucus to pursue?
Yeah, we absolutely will be focused on some of the atrocities that we are seeing around the country in terms of immigration enforcement. We believe, the Trump administration is saying that they're deporting criminals, and I think many Americans would support that goal. The challenge is the majority of the folks that they are detaining, that ICE is detaining, have no criminal record whatsoever. So we're seeing, ICE demanding people's papers, legal immigrants being detained, and, just a couple of weeks ago in Minneapolis, shooting an American citizen dead in the streets. So we're very concerned about what we're seeing, and there are a range of bills that we've proposed to try and rein in some of the most egregious abuses that we are seeing.
And I'll say, right, too, just a few weeks ago, I had a town hall with Attorney General Dan Rayfield, and we should be proud that we have an Attorney General that's stepping in to be able to challenge the federal government in this space. We want to make sure that we're partnering with the highest lawmaker in our state and doing everything we can to step up in the state. We're hearing from our constituents from all four corners of Oregon that people are expecting Oregon to step up and do what we can do to protect Oregon families.
We mentioned at the top, a short session is short. So how much progress are you expecting to make on transportation funding in this short session?
Our job in the short session is to help fill the short-term budget challenges that the state transportation agency faces. We won't be passing a major, transportation package in the short session. What we will be doing is taking a step back and setting up a process and a conversation to get us to next year. But in the meantime, we still have a shortfall in our state transportation agencies. Cities and counties are still struggling to fund their, pothole filling and snow plowing. And so we do need to take a hard look at some of the transportation budgets, and Oregonians will feel the impact of these cuts to funding.
I also just want to note that when you're approaching budget shortfalls, and we'll potentially have a chance to go a little bit deeper on this, bringing people together, Republicans, Democrats, from rural communities, from our urban communities, to talk about balancing the budget is really important to us. People should know that they have a voice, that they understand that the legislature is responsive to their local needs, and that we're going to do everything we can to make sure that our budget is balanced and that we're addressing the needs of Oregonians, including in making sure that the transportation system for the remainder of the biennium, that we can balance that budget.
President Trump's tax cut and spending bill is expected to cost the state of Oregon $900 million in tax revenue. Instead, people won't be paying that money. They'll keep it in their pockets. Is there anything you can tell us about the impact to the state's budget?
Yeah. So last year, during the legislative session, we knew that the federal government was likely going to cut funding to the states. So we budgeted very conservatively to protect core funding for public schools, public safety, wildfire prevention, core services like that. So we left a surplus in our budget to plan for that. But basically overnight, after we adjourned our session, that major Trump budget bill passed, and it blew a substantial hole in our budget. And it did that in three ways. One, it cut funding to programs that Oregonians rely on. We're going to lose $15 billion in funding over the next 6 years for programs like Medicaid and SNAP. The second thing it did is it put huge new administrative costs onto the states to administer those programs, costs that we had never paid before that were borne by the federal government. And then third, it was a massive tax giveaway to big corporations and the wealthy. So the state is taking in, as you referenced, hundreds of millions of dollars of less than it otherwise would have. Our challenge in the short session is to balance our budget and to do it responsibly. And so getting through these budget challenges, it's going to require a balanced approach. We're going to have to cut waste and inefficiency in state government to protect our core services. We're going to have to look at responsible use of our rainy day funds, and we're going to look at closing those tax loopholes for wealthy and the wealthy and big corporations.
And I really appreciate the speaker noting this. If you look at the big ugly bill that passed this last session, the tax provisions in there basically went to fund mega corporations that aren't even headquartered in the state of Oregon. So if we're talking about things that we need to do, how are we working with low-income folks, people that are trying to start businesses, middle-income households? The cost of food this last year, there was just a report out, went up quite a bit. And when you're talking about cutting food assistance in all four corners of the state, it is going to be really hard. We've heard from even rural grocery stores are going to have a hard time staying open because of the cuts from the federal government and under Donald Trump. So we want to make sure the legislature is doing everything we can to address food and medicine for people that are going to go without because of the decision of this federal government and the passage of that bill.
The tax bill also cut taxes related to overtime pay and no taxes on tips. As you both know, a lot of low and middle income Oregonians benefit from that. It sounds like you think there's an avenue to address the corporate taxes while allowing the people who are going to save money from the overtime and tips.
I would say that what's important to me is that everyday working Oregonians can keep more money in their pockets and that our tax structure enables that. That's important because we all know the cost of living is going up, and it's important because if we are ensuring that our tax policy puts more dollars in Oregonians' pockets, folks who are eligible for tips, lower or moderate income Oregonians, those folks will spend those resources. If you give a tax break to a wealthy person, they're more likely to save and less likely to recirculate those dollars in our economy. So that is what we are focused on, is if we can make changes to our tax code that enable everyday Oregonians to keep more money in their pocket while closing some of those other tax loopholes.
I think there will be some selectivity. The chairs of our revenue committee have been doing months and months of work trying to set up this conversation. It'll be a public and transparent conversation, and I do think that they're going to be focused on the big tax giveaways that we saw that blew a hole in our budget last summer.
Final question for each of you, if you're able to, your top priority, just one, for this session.
Our main responsibility as a legislature and our constitutional duty is to balance our budget. So from a governing perspective, that is what we need to do, and we need to do it in a responsible way that protects core services like rural hospitals, maternity care, public schools, public safety, and sets us up for the future.
And I will say that Oregon is an incredible place to live, and we have a welcome mat that is open. I was so excited to see that United Van Lines and U-Haul, and now it looks like a lot of people are moving here and getting new driver's licenses. People are moving to Oregon because there's an opportunity to be in the outdoors, but they're also moving here because there's opportunities to be able to find good jobs. And so the legislature can also set the table to making sure that we're growing the economy as well. So I think that as we think about short sessions, sometimes we have to be pretty selective. It's a very short amount of time, but I'm very bullish on the future of our state as well.
Senate President Rob Wagner, House Speaker Julie Fahey, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wright.